Welcome to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you are ready to find your inner magic, develop great habits, and a rock steady mindset to feel confident, comfortable, and fit in your body, you are in the right place. I am Kim Barnes Jefferson, and I'll be giving you weekly doses of health, fitness, and life tips sprinkled with humor and real talk. If you're ready to be consistent without the stress of perfection, magic makers, it's time to slip into your favorite pair of PJs, grab some coffee, kick back, and listen to today's show.
And here is this week's iTunes review. It comes to you from Dub by V. She writes, I love the podcast. You speak your mind and you don't sugarcoat anything. I love your energy and your good spirit. Oh, that just fills my heart. You don't even understand how much I enjoy these reviews. So please, if you feel the need, please go to iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. Do me a favor and hit me up with a 5-star review. I absolutely love them. They mean the world to me, and I will read it on my podcast. So thank you so much, Dub by V. It does mean the world to me. All right, Magic Makers, let me ask you something real quick. If January diets worked, why do we feel like we still need to keep doing them? Because at some point, we all have to admit this, that it's not a motivation issue, it's not a discipline issue or a willpower issue. It's a timing issue. And after 40, timing matters so much more. And today, we're talking about why January might be the worst possible time to go on a diet, especially if you're over 40. And you are either perimenopausal, menopausal, or postmenopausal. It is just, I got to say it, unhelpful, and it's probably working against you. So if you've been thinking, if this is the year that I am done, uncle, I declare I declare no longer I'm going to be on a diet, then you're not behind, you are early. And I get it, right? January is that fresh notebook, right? At the beginning of the school year. The fresh pencil that you sharpen or a brand new pen. Am I the only person who has a ridiculous obsession with office supplies? So January just feels like, wow, this is the time I should really be getting my shit together. It feels responsible. It's like, yeah, I'm taking myself seriously. I got 365 days and I am not going to waste one of them. And after the holidays, dieting feels like the only way to get your life back on track, right? Many people, maybe you, maybe me, we've spent the last probably 4-6 weeks doing whatever the fuck I want. But here's where most people miss the mark. January diets don't work because they're not effective. They feel good because it gives your anxious brain something to do, right? Many of the women who listen to this show, we're doers, right? Give me a freaking checklist and I will check the shit out of that checklist, right? Tell me what to do. If it's on a bingo card, if it's on a checklist, if it's a challenge, it's a whatever, I will do it. And here's where I'm going to raise my hand too. Because back in my competition days, January, I was all in, right? I had 6 months to get ready for my biggest show of the year. There was no flexibility. It was straight tunnel vision. And it worked because my entire life during those 9 years I competed was built around this season. Everybody knew, December 31st, I would party like a freaking rock star, and January 1st, I would become a monk. I had no social life. Training was the only thing I focused on. And so, but here's what I know. That wasn't sustainable. The Kim of, God, last time I stepped on stage was 2008. The Kim of 2008, no way could I do that right now. It wasn't sustainable, and I wasn't training for my life. And now my focus And a lot of the women who I work with, their focus is like, how do I just train for life? How do I not spend oodles of time at the gym? How do I not make my entire life revolve around my food? Are you asking yourself, what diet should I start? If that's your January question, this is for you. Because if January diets actually worked after 40, you wouldn't be starting over again with the same issue, same month, same diet, same plan, same freaking frustration. Here is the real issue. You are not lazy, my friend. You are not broken. You've just been taught how to diet, not for what happens after. If you're looking for that fast weight loss, thinking you need to push harder, more discipline, more willpower, starting over every year, that is why your results don't stick anymore. That's exactly what I'm breaking down in my free masterclass, Planning Your January Diet. We're talking about why January diets backfire after 40, why fat loss keeps coming roaring back after all of these crazy diets, why being under-muscled makes body composition even harder, why pushing harder always bites you in the ass, why strength training makes way more sense right now, and how to use the next 12 weeks to get out of the diet chaos. We're not talking foodless detox, no new year, new me nonsense. This isn't about quitting goals. It's about finally picking a smart one. If you're done chasing the fast weight loss and you're ready to build something that actually sticks, come join me. Register for the free masterclass that is happening on Thursday, January 15th. The link is in the show notes. All right, see you there. I'm going to say this, because I've been in the gym business for over 20 years and I see it regularly, right? Maybe you think you could pull off that January 2008 Kim, right? You can pull that off too. But eventually, here's how I see it play out. You show up the first Monday of the year. And I used to teach Monday night for decades. I still teach on Monday nights. And Monday night, my class would be packed. I would see my regulars and then I would see that new face. And I'd be like, all right, let's go. And the first wave of people would disappear somewhere around President's Day. And then the next wave would tap out somewhere around St. Patrick's Day. And if you made it past St. Patrick's Day, I knew you were going to be there. Like you've made the leap. You've made the transition. You've built a solid habit. But most don't. And the reason why most don't, because they're white knuckling. They're like, if I can just get through these 6 weeks, if I can get through these 8 weeks. But it's like you haven't built anything real. You haven't built anything sustainable. You haven't built anything that can sustain when life throws you a curveball, because life's always going to throw you a curveball. So that's why most people do in January, right? But that's not what we're doing in January, right? Let's fast forward. Real life after 40. You're coming off. How many of you feel like, you get an amazing night's sleep? How many of you feel like, oh my God, I have no stress in my life? And how many of you are like not, we're coming off through travel, alcohol, sugar, schedule chaos. And then January shows up and it says, all right, cool. Let's just eat less and do more. And your body's like, it goes into straight panic. It feels threatened. It doesn't feel like a plan. It doesn't feel like a program. It feels like a threat. And your nervous system has already been fried from like putting up with some family member who makes you nutso, or your kids being home for a weekend making you nutso, or the end of the year and you're, racing towards the end of the year to finish up whatever it is that you need to finish up by the end of the year. And so your hormones are just going buck wild and your body is craving safety right now, not scarcity. And I get that, right? But maybe you've heard this stat before, but 80% of people abandon their New Year's resolutions by February. And there's actually a national quit day for diets. And it's usually roughly around the middle of January, the middle to end of January. So most people are like, I'm tapping, right? And most of us ladies over 40, we've been on about 10 plus diets by the time we actually hit menopause. Aren't you tired? Because I know I am. And before you think yeah, but this year I've gotten a different program. It's going to be so different. Let me ask you, what is actually different? Truly, what is actually different? it's January and we're putting the same pressure we put on ourselves last January and the January before, and maybe in June because we were going on vacation. But trying harder at the worst possible time isn't going to get you faster results. And it's not about being more disciplined. It's January, like it sets you up to fail, right? Because we're all hopped up on like new me, new you energy. And that's especially true in perimenopause because your body is really trying to protect you. And we've been for decades, we've only been taught how to diet, right? You've never been taught how to not diet. It's always been like, take this out, do more of this, do less of that, eat this, eat that. And the uncomfortable part that we don't want to talk about, we want to say out loud, is that, and I say that with so much love, it's because I've been there too, right? January dieting gives you this illusion of control, like back on track. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this. And it lets you avoid the hard work of learning how to eat, how to train for your grown-ass adult life. So many women come to me and they're like, oh my God, Kim, back in the day, I was able to. Yeah, me too. But I ask you, do you want to go back in the day and do what you had to do to get those results? And I remember a mentor of mine said to me, Kim, how you get your results is the way you keep your results. And if you got your results grinding and hustling, do you want to continue to grind and hustle? Because that's the only way it works. And I wish there were a different way. Or we can take a slower approach and have more ease, more flow, and not have to rely so heavily on motivation, discipline, and willpower, right? Because dieting is easier in January than trusting that you're going to keep up with these hardcore rules come February. And of course, right, you'd rather have rules than figure it out. Rules feel safe. Rules like do this, don't do that, right? Right turn on red or no turn on red, that they work, right? But here's the thing. It works out in the real world, right? Telling you not to turn right on red works in the real world. Telling you to stop so you don't bump into another car, it works. But when it comes to the diet world, you have to start figuring out things for yourself. I'm not saying you don't have guidelines, but we also have to learn, how do those guidelines work for me? How do those guidelines work for who I am right now? How does this guideline work for the season of life that I'm in? Because, and I talk about this regularly, we have people who are working through all different seasons of their life. You could be in the season where you're a dance mom. You could be in the season that you're a hockey mom. You could be in the season that you're sitting on a baseball field. You could be a work person who's like, oh, this is my, a tax, a CPA, and where you're like in the mix of tax season, right? We all had those seasons where life just doesn't, give us the time that we want to. So we have to learn how to ebb and flow with that, right? Because doing the right thing at the right time isn't giving up. It's finally getting smart. It's finally accepting like, okay, this is the box of time that I have. What can I do within it? Because I will always tell you, something is better than nothing. If you can't go 5 days, 2 days, boom, it still works, right? Because this is what I know what January is. January is for looking at your entire year and kind of getting a rough idea. And for me, I like to work in 90-day like sprints. Like, okay, what does, January to March look like for me? And then somewhere around February, I'm like, okay, what does April, May, June look like for me? And that way I'm always kind of a little bit ahead, but I'm like in the moment. And that way you don't get distracted by, different shiny objects. And so January is like, this is how we start to stabilize routine. We start to find out what consistency looks like for you. And consistency doesn't mean constantly. Consistency is like, what is 1 to 3 things? Do you notice how I said 1 to 3 things that I could easily do that feels challenging but doable, right? That's where we're working. It could be focusing on eating enough protein. It could be focusing on getting a good night's sleep. It could be focusing on giving yourself 5 minutes of breath work. It's water, right? What feels, and those are just examples. Those are you're scribbling notes. Those are just examples so that you can be like, oh, all right. Yeah. All right. I could do that. Or you'll be like, oh, you know what I'm really working on is that I want to go for a walk. What I'm really working on is I need to get my ass to the gym. You decide, because this isn't about punishing yourself. This is about overcorrecting. It's not about detoxing. It's not about resetting. It's like giving yourself a runway, giving yourself the time, because we create these like inflated runways, for a really long time. I coached girls to do fitness shows, and the runway for many of them was 12 to 16 weeks. Now, for the majority of women, 12 to 16 weeks worked. But then we have outliers. And some of them needed 20 weeks. Some of them needed a good solid 6 months. And for many of the women that I work with, I know that within the first 2 weeks of us working together, you're still trying to like feel it out. You've been doing the same shit for decades, and you trying to like change a few things. For you, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen a tractor trailer try to make a 3-point turn, right? It's a lot of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And eventually, probably about 3 weeks in, I start to see, you're like, okay, I'm kind of now starting to see why I should do this. And then by like week 4, so it's like, there's a method to the madness, but it's not going to go as fast as you want, right? And that's the one big shift that I want you to think about, that making a change, especially if you've been doing the same bleep for decades, it is not going to be this overnight thing. I really wish it was for you, but it is not. So I want you to start thinking about like, what does your runway look like, right? Because part of your thinking is that like, well, everyone else starts fresh in January, and if I don't start in January, I'm behind. But girl, who is this invisible judge telling you you're behind? Who decided that January is for fresh starts, right? You can start fresh any day of the week. You are not falling behind. You are getting ahead of the burnout. And that's why a smarter way to use January after 40, one that actually sets you up for success instead of sabotaging, that is exactly what I'm breaking down in my free masterclass, January Diets Don't Work After 40. And here's why. It's a 45-minute plus Q&A, and you'll walk away with knowing how to stop dieting and finally be successful without the restriction, without the burnout, and without waiting until February to figure it out. So here's my question for you. Is this the year you stop dieting in January? Or is this the year you finally understand why it never freaking worked? And if you're ready to do things differently, do me a favor, go into the link in my show notes and save yourself a spot in my free masterclass. And if you know another woman who is planning for January to be her punishment, I want you to share this with her so that she can understand why January is not the time to go ham, why January is the time to really take a nice, big, deep breath and figure out why diets don't work and what you can do instead. All right, Magic Makers, I love chatting with you. I will be back next week, and I look forward to seeing you in my free masterclass that is happening on Thursday, January 15th. All right, talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you've made it this far, yay. I'm thinking you enjoyed the show. Let's continue the conversation on Instagram. You can find me at Kim Jefferson Coach. In order for me to keep sharing this message, do me a favor and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. New episodes are available every Wednesday. The Fit Girl Magic podcast is intended to provide you with tips, tools, and strategies that will help you make better decisions about your health. I really appreciate your feedback and your support. Thank you so much.